Welcome to Japan, Ms.Elf. 12 episodes, adventure, fantasy, and romance. Now, before I give you my opinions of this anime, let me give you a quick synopsis of this story. We have Kazuhiro, who ever since he was a child, whenever he would fell asleep, he would wake up in a fantasy world where there's magic, elf, dragons, and so on. But he will always, all the way up to adulthood, even a working man, he thought that everything that he saw in his dream was just that, a dream. He didn't thought that that was a proper another world. So while he's in the fantasy world, he decided to explore a certain dungeon, and he heard that there was a dragon in there, and elf who is an acquaintance of him decide to follow him there and explore together. But the dragon found out, attacked them, and well, they both of them were holding themselves together in a tight hug, embracing for impact. Well, our main character Kazuhiro wakes up, and behold, when he turned towards his side, the elf girl, whose name is Maribel, was there, naked, in all to the glory. Don't judge me. Now, and that's the quick synopsis. It's a very fish out of water type of story. Well, the elf girl is in with him in Japan, learning about food, culture, technology, but she isn't stuck there because well, just like he did since childhood. Once they fell, well, she has to be next to him. But when they fell asleep next to each other, the both of them are back in the fantasy world. And most the crush of the story is like that, going from both fantasy and real world. And honestly, the real the fantasies part of the story wasn't all that interesting. The whole dungeon, the world mechanic of that fantasy world was real because they had a video game logic in that world, and there was even the whole video game screen, and making a party, and if they're in a party they can chat with each other from long distances. And I was like, it was a little bit weird, the whole introducing game mechanics. It would be understandable if it was something like Shangri-La Frontier or something where this was a isekai into a video game world, but this is a video game world. This is a fantasy world. So the whole video game mechanics always caught me. I wouldn't say off guard. It just fell out of place. That's what I'm going to say. But the real crush of the well, I didn't have any interest in the fantasy side of things. When both the main character Kazuhiro and Maribel were in Japan with the culture and everything, that's where for me the story and the characters were able to capture more of my interest. Now, the that's that yes, that's mostly the crush of the story, being mostly a fish out of water story. Now, the animation style was very early 2000s. Now, was it is it and that's not dunking it on any way, because they're obviously in early 2000 they did release a lot of high quality anime. But I don't know, let me see, is there maybe shoe beats, maybe deers, yes, very Yes, it reminds me of that type of style of animation. If you watch any of those two anime that I just mentioned, you'll know what I'm talking about. But even though that the main character Katsuhiro, his character model wasn't all that impressive, but they really went all out with the elf girl Maribel. She obviously, because she's the, let's say, pretty much the poster girl for the anime, because her character model, and yes, there was a lot of edgy moments where you got a good look at her character model. Don't judge me. But yes, she was very well done and very well endowed. That's most I'm going to say about her. And we have another character, which is a supporting character, which was the dragon, who, after coming down and being bribed with some lunch boxes, she got very hooked on Japanese cuisine. So she decided, hey, let me travel with you to Japan. So yes, the three of them fell asleep next to each other, woke up in Japan, and again, obviously, just like the elf, the Vidra, the dragon, was naked and she was thick. Don't judge me. But yes, the both of them, their character models were detailed in the right places. Now, like I said, my interest was mostly in the real world in Japan. Every time they go back to the fantasy world with the whole fighting bandits, monsters, or exploring a dungeon, it always lost a little bit of my interest. And I think that the either the animators, the studio that animated it, or maybe even the light novel, because this is a light novel adaptation, maybe they knew that, because the whole fantasy part was very rushed. I mean, they were in the middle of exploring a dungeon, and they mostly explored only the first floor. And I thought that by the end of the 12th episode, we would see a good chunk of the exploration of that dungeon, but no. They honestly, it felt like the they didn't care about the animation. Sorry, they didn't care about the whole dungeon exploration, because yes, they just went towards Japan. They did a couple of episodes where they're going to a hot spring and so on and so on, and the whole exploring that dungeon never came up again. The 12th episode ended, and it ended they them having a sweet romantic moment in Japan, talking about how they were going to have fun for a long time, and all of that. So yes, not only me is losing interest in the whole fantasy thing, but I think that even the studio or even the author of the light novel also was losing interest in the fantasy part of the story. So I feel it like it's not only just me. That is this the what I'm trying to say. But yes, now what I talk about, let me talk about a little bit of the personality of both main character, being Maribel the elf and Kazuhiro the human, who can isekai for some reason between both worlds. Never explained. But yes, Kazuhiro, uh, office worker. For some reason, before he knew that it was just a dream, but his hobby was practically sleeping. He would always, as soon as he left work, he always goes to his house, cook a meal, and go to sleep, because for some reason only food and water are the things that can cross over towards the fantasy world, and vice versa. And that's his personality in the real world. In the fantasy world, he likes to learn different languages and likes to learn a lot about that that not that as in my father, that as in disease, that cultures and the way they used to live in the past. Maribel, she's a mage. She part of the mage college. Uh, I would say low ranking, but she's let's say newbie. And honestly, other than the whole, hmm, well, she's very curious and she's very intellectual. She practically, in the span of 1 month, she was able to, I won't say master, but learn a lot about the Japanese language, where she can defend herself in a conversation, even with obviously the Japanese people, talking with them. But she's very scholarly, very cute, very curious, and very childlike curiosity towards everything that of the Japanese culture, and that's mostly the crush of it. So let me do a quick rundown. I already talked about the story, the character, about the whole fish out of water aspect. Yes, I think I already set my piece on everything. The maybe the voice acting was solidly done. I think wasn't annoyed by the voices or anything. So yes, I'm gonna leave it here. Now, for this one, even though that I personally did enjoy this anime, I have to be fair in my review and giving out my score, because honestly, to me, personally, I would have given it a 7. But taking being very looking everything with, I'm not a professional, but with a professional type of mindset, sadly I can only give this one a 6 out of 10. I did enjoy this anime. If you want a cute fish out of water story, I can very well recommend this one. Mostly the reason because I took a couple of points away, because the animation style did leave a little bit to offer. It wasn't awful, but it left a lot to be desired. Let's see. Yes, I got used to the. Okay, let me. So, I got used to the style of animation, but I wasn't never in love with it. If that makes sense. And the story, while I was very intrigued with the fantasy part, sorry, I said that incorrectly. While I was interested in the whole real world Japanese part, but every time that they went to the fantasy part of things, I always lost a little bit of interest. And the story is very basic, but still enjoyable. So yes, I'm just going to leave it here. So yes, have a good day, have a good night, wherever you're from, and see you next video.